One decision. A single order condemned an entire army to die in the snow. Imagine a city of ghosts, where shattered buildings stand like tombstones against a white, frozen wasteland. Empty helmets lie scattered in the ruins. Abandoned tanks are swallowed by drifts of snow. And the only movement is the distant silhouette of soldiers marching into oblivion. This wasn't just a battle. It was the graveyard of an army, a turning point in history forged in ice and desperation. And the architect of this catastrophe wasn't a general on the front lines, but one man, far from the cold, whose ambition overshadowed all reason. The decision came from the very top of Nazi Germany's leadership, a figure whose will was absolute. But before we name him, we must understand why this one city held such immense importance. Why would anyone sacrifice over 250,000 soldiers for a single dot on a map? Stalingrad. The name itself held a power that went far beyond its physical boundaries. For the Soviet Union, it was a symbol of national pride, bearing the name of their leader. Strategically, it was a vital artery. The city sat on the banks of the Volga River, a critical transport route connecting Moscow with the southern regions of the country and the rich oil fields of the Caucasus. If Stalingrad fell, the Soviet war machine would be crippled, its lifeblood cut off. Industrially, it was a powerhouse, churning out tanks and weapons. Losing it would be a devastating blow. Psychologically, its capture would be a monumental victory for Germany and a crushing defeat for the Soviets. Both sides knew this. The battle for Stalingrad was never just about controlling territory. It was a battle for the very soul of the war. And into this crucible marched one of Germany's most formidable forces, the Sixth Army. The Sixth Army was the tip of the spear, a proud and battle-hardened force that had known little but victory. Led by General Friedrich Paulus, they had swept across Europe with ruthless efficiency. As they advanced towards Stalingrad in the summer of 1942, their confidence was at an all-time high. They were the embodiment of the Blitzkrieg, the lightning war that had brought nations to their knees. Morale was soaring, and the momentum seemed unstoppable. They believed they were invincible, on the verge of delivering the final, decisive blow to the Soviet Union. The city, they thought, would fall within weeks. This overconfidence, this belief in their own myth, blinded them to the storm that was gathering on the horizon. They pushed deeper and deeper into the urban maze of Stalingrad, fighting for every street, every building, every room, unaware that they were walking into a trap of their own making. As the brutal Russian winter began to set in, the situation grew desperate. The German advance stalled in the face of ferocious Soviet resistance. The Sixth Army was overextended, its supply lines stretched thin, and its flanks dangerously exposed. General Paulus and his senior commanders saw the writing on the wall. They pleaded for permission to execute a tactical withdrawal, to pull back, regroup, and avoid being surrounded. It was a sound military strategy, a logical move to preserve their forces, but their pleas were met with a deafening silence, followed by an unshakable command. Against the advice of his most experienced generals, Adolf Hitler issued a single, fatal order: no retreat. The Sixth Army was to hold its position at all costs. For Hitler, Stalingrad had become an obsession, a matter of personal prestige. Admitting defeat, even a temporary one, was unthinkable. That one command, born of ego and illusion, sealed the fate of every soldier trapped in the city. While the Germans were ordered to stand their ground, the Soviets were preparing their masterstroke. On November 19, 1942, they launched Operation Uranus. It was a massive, two-pronged counteroffensive targeting the weak and poorly equipped Romanian and Hungarian armies that were protecting the Sixth Army's flanks. The Soviet pincers sliced through the Axis lines with shocking speed. Within just 4 days, the two Soviet fronts met at the town of Kalak, snapping the trap shut. The Sixth Army, over 250,000 strong, was completely encircled. All roads, all railways, all avenues of supply or escape were cut. The hunters had become the hunted, now trapped in a vast, frozen pocket of land known as the Kessel, or Cauldron. The most celebrated army of the Third Reich was now isolated, surrounded, and facing the full fury of the Russian winter with dwindling supplies and no hope of reinforcement from the ground. Their only hope, Day we're told would come from the sky. Hermann Göring, the head of the German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, made a bold and reckless promise to Hitler. He assured him that his aircraft could supply the trapped Sixth Army by air. He claimed they could fly in hundreds of tons of food, ammunition, and fuel every single day, enough to sustain the army until a relief force could break through. It was a fantasy. The reality of winter logistics made such an operation impossible. Blizzards, ice, and relentless Soviet anti-aircraft fire turned the sky into a death trap. The number of operational transport planes was far too low for the monumental task. Instead of the promised minimum of 500 tons per day, the airlift often delivered less than 100. And on many days, nothing at all. The planes that did make it through were often shot down. The promise of an airlift was not a lifeline. It was an illusion that merely prolonged the agony, convincing the soldiers to hold on for a rescue that would never come. Inside the frozen city, life devolved into a primitive struggle for survival. The cold was a relentless enemy, with temperatures plummeting to -30 degrees Celsius and beyond. Soldiers lacked proper winter clothing, and frostbite claimed thousands. Fuel ran out, so there was no heat. The daily rations shrank from bread and sausage to a few ounces of horse meat, then to nothing. Men chewed on leather belts to quell the gnawing hunger. Ammunition became so scarce that fighting often ceased. The once proud German soldiers became gaunt, hollow-eyed figures, wrapped in rags, shuffling through the snow-filled ruins. The constant shelling gave way to an eerie, terrifying silence, broken only by the whistling wind. It was a world of isolation and despair, where the only certainty was the slow, creeping approach of death from cold, starvation, or disease. The city had become a mass grave. As January 1943 drew to a close, the end was near. In a final, cynical attempt to prevent a surrender, Hitler promoted Friedrich Paulus to the rank of Field Marshal. No German Field Marshal in history had ever surrendered. The message was clear. Paulus was expected to fight to the last man and then take his own life. It was immense psychological pressure, a demand for a heroic, meaningless sacrifice. But Paulus chose life over myth. Surrounded, with his army destroyed and his men reduced to frozen skeletons, he defied the order. On January 31, 1943, a shocked and exhausted General Paulus formally surrendered the southern pocket of the Sixth Army. 2 days later, the remaining northern pocket also laid down their arms. The world was stunned. The surrender of an entire German army, led by a field marshal, was unprecedented. It was a public and humiliating admission of a catastrophic defeat. The fall of Stalingrad was more than just a military loss. It was the moment the war turned. The myth of German invincibility, carefully crafted by years of propaganda and lightning victories, was shattered forever. For the first time, the German public was forced to confront the reality of a devastating defeat. The loss of the entire Sixth Army was a blow from which the German military, particularly on the Eastern Front, would never fully recover. Strategically, the initiative passed to the Soviet Union. From Stalingrad onward, it was the Red Army that was on the offensive, beginning the long, bloody push that would eventually end in Berlin. The momentum of the war had shifted irrevocably. The victory galvanized the Soviet people and the Allies, proving that the German war machine could be stopped and defeated. Stalingrad became a symbol of resilience and the beginning of the end for the Third Reich. We are left with a haunting question that echoes through history. What if that single order had never been given? If retreat had been allowed, if the Sixth Army had been permitted to pull back and consolidate its lines that November, would the course of the war have been different? Would history remember Stalingrad, not as a graveyard, but just as another battle on a long and brutal front? It's a question we can never answer, but it forces us to reflect on how one man's pride, one single, terrible decision, changed the world forever. Thank you for watching. If you found this journey into history compelling, please consider subscribing for more stories like this.